Hello there, welcome to my review of Lucium Bolivar. This is an expansion of the Lucium 2.5 mod for Medieval 2 Total War. I will say that I won't be going over things that are in the Lucium main game because this is an expansion, just to save myself from repeating. Same as before, this will be of the perspective of a casual player to Medieval 2 Total War. This review is also meant for the developers of Lucium as critiques on the game, but not necessarily those who are thinking of getting Lucium. But if you want it, I do recommend the game. With that said, let's get straight into it. First off, the menu. I quite like it. It's got quite a chill atmosphere to it, almost as if it's holding its breath before the chaotic campaign of the Latin American Wars of Independence. But the image is quite low quality on the menu. The music is nice, though same as before, the title, where it says Bolivar, is pretty bad. It has quite a solid colour to it. Last video I mentioned how it'd be really cool to have a Era's Conquest style .bat file to organize between the different kinds of campaigns you want to play, and I'm really glad to see that implemented in the game. It works really well, aside from the file not found but loading up anyway. I'd say the style works extremely well. Not only can you read the text better because it's white, but it also reflects the main two colours of the Lucian background being the Prussian flag, white and black. Next up, the units. I quite like the unit design. They certainly look like they're in South America. It's very fitting. But I do have a problem with the lack of variety. Probably a good amount of variety are the gunners, obviously. Because of the main focus, there could be more. And I kind of don't like the fact that the only true infantry unit there is are farmers. So I think there could be more units added to that. I've also found that the cavalry is overpowered in the game, and that might be because of the fact that it is the only true melee dealing unit there is in the game. But I just find that they often completely wreck units of gunners. Even when the gunners have the swords out, it's a really tough battle. So I suggest either the cavalry have lower attack or like a higher charge bonus, or that there's the higher attack for infantry and gunners just to balance things out. 4 smaller points about the units is that the artillery crew don't need guns because they're programmed only for melee and for loading the cannons, so just a sword would be more accurate. Cavalry have this weird death bug where one of them is killed and then they pause in a still motion for about 2 seconds and then flop over into their normal death position. Arching shots, where the gunners actually shoot over walls, I really like that feature. I think that was in the previous Lucium game where I didn't get to talk about it, but I really like that. And lastly, casual players might not know about the alt shot or alt melee, where you press alt and attack and they can get out their sword. They may not know about that, so it might be worth explaining how to do that, because it is an integral part about the melee. Otherwise they'll be thinking, why the bloody hell are there so many gunners and I have so few melee choices? Next, onto the campaign. Generally I found that this was quite a unique campaign compared to most Medieval 2 mods. It's certainly harder than most, especially if you're playing Spain or Portugal, and it is really fun to play as Colombia and Brazil and to just wreck everything and create your own empire. I'm personally quite a fan of the slavery and the direct rule versus self-governing aspect of the gameplay. I'd say it's quite a good concept, though I think it definitely needs some explaining, like a description, because while it does say what they do, it doesn't do a good enough job of what you can do later on thanks to your decision, other than a few small bonuses, and almost nothing for the slavery is explained. An unfortunate side effect to this game aspect is that when you're playing as Spain, you have to spend 2 turns doing this to every single settlement for slavery and the rule that you want to have per settlement. Otherwise, you're not going to have anything to build. Which does go into the next point, and that is about the Spanish stock market crash. Personally, I think the stock market deficit is a little too high. It kind of leaves no room to build anything else. Another event is the Mapuche tribute to keep the empire together. which is about 2,000 florins, which will always drag you down in finance. I think this is quite a bad part of the gameplay, because the Mapuche uniquely is at a disadvantage against the rest of the factions. When you have the first turn and you realize that you can expand on the benefits of crumbling empires, then on the second turn you're guaranteed to get lots of debt. It's quite a bit of a pain to deal with. I think it should be either reduced to 1,000 per turn or increased past 2,000 but for one turn. Otherwise, it just becomes unmanageable. Overall, I think the campaign is relatively balanced, though I certainly see it more in favour of, say, Colombia and the other emerging empires, as opposed to Spain especially. Casual players might find it very hard to deal with Spain if they don't have the hindsight of knowing about some of the events, and plus if they don't even know about the pullback technique to go to certain settlements and leave some behind. If they don't know that, then they'll have a very hard time and they might not enjoy the game. But overall, it's pretty good. But if you know what you're doing, here are some smaller points that I just want to say before I get onto the music section. The map has this weird glitch where the mountains can be overlapping, so depending on if you look left or right, a different layer will appear. There are some problems with the unit banners appearing sideways for some of the units, which makes the Paraguay flag look like the French flag and Portugal simply the wrong way round. For some reason, in much of my experience playing the game, the Mapache don't have any voice lines. And lastly, I'm sorry to say, but the unit cards are probably the worst part of the game. They just look awful. Some of them are out of proportion, making the units look fat, and all of them are low resolution. So unfortunately that has got to be the worst part of the expansion. And now lastly, the music section. I liked all the tracks. There is not a single one which I didn't even dislike a little bit. So really I just only have some suggestions. The song suggestions are mainly from Rodrigo y Gabriela, Gypsy Kings, Antonio Vivaldi, and Mozart. If I think of any others, which I don't put an example here, then they'll be in the description. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to know more about Lucium, check the other video. And once again, this is just my opinion and my perspective, and from the perspective of casual players. Please don't take it as absolute fact. Feel free to have your own opinion about this. And thank you once again.